Hello, welcome to this short training publishing for Transcend, Transformative Agreements, and Beyond. I'm Dr. Mark Williamson for Transcend, and this is put out by the Research Design Compliance and Data Management Corps. So what we're covering today is the Nelson Memo. So the Nelson Memo was put out by the White House Office of Sciences or Science and Technology Policy, or OSTP, and the memo establishes updated federal requirements for public access to research outputs. So the implementation date has passed. So that was December 31st, 2025. So it's now in effect. And there's a variety of outputs that need to be addressed, but the two major ones, and the ones we'll cover today, is peer-reviewed publications and scientific data, so data sets. So for federally funded research, so if you're funded by NIH, DOE, NSF, NASA, etc., your output must be open access and available to the public. So if you have a peer-reviewed publication, it needs to be open access. If you have scientific data, it needs to be open access. People need to have access to it. So it's publicly funded, it needs to be publicly accessible. And so to meet that, you're going to need to think about moving forward if you have a publication or if you have a data set from either a grant you're currently working on or a grant you hope to apply to, you need to think, how am I going to make this open access? Now, broadly speaking, for a publication, that's going to be published in some sort of journal that has open access availability. And for a data set, probably some sort of repository. Now, they might be the same thing. If you just have a small data set, that might go right into the publication and include it as a supplemental. But in either case, both your publications and your data sets need to be open access, with all the normal caveats of, say, like protected health information for data sets, et cetera, applying. So for Transcend, our major partners are UND, NDSU, and Stanford. For UND, there is certainly publication support because that's certainly a huge hurdle of trying to come up with the money to publish in an open access because that's not free. So the University of North Dakota actually has agreements with publishers that enable corresponding authors affiliated with UND to publish open access at no additional cost. So that's a huge help. And what I really like is actually UND's librarians have developed a tool to identify participating journals. So there's this search tool. You can actually search terms and say, and find a journal that you can actually publish in. So that's a huge support. Now, NDSU, our other main university partner, also has something very similar, also has transformative agreements and pretty much, I think, the same search tool. But something I really like about the website for NDSU is actually kind of breaks down what a transformative agreement is from the traditional model. Traditional model is libraries pay to access journal content and authors pay to publish their research. So that's open access. But the transformative agreement is essentially the library subscription covers both the reading of the journal content and the publication by the authors. So that's kind of what boiling down what a transformative agreement is. So if you're a Transcend researcher, you can take this transformative agreement either at UND or NDSU and use it to help open access your journal, or sorry, your article for a journal. So let's take a little break here to actually take a look at what that looks like. So here I am now on that search tool at UND. You can search for journals. And so, for example, say I want entomology, it'll populate and it'll show like who pays, where you're going to do neotropical entomology, the library pays. It's an imprint of Spring and Nature. Then some of them are like S2Os, but a lot of them, you can find a lot of them with library. Say I want more, actually my field, epidemiology, find various fields. And it also shows up whether there's open access, hybrid, some of the licensing, etc. So that's a really helpful tool. Very similar tool, again, over on NDSU, you can use the journal search tool from the main one, and looks like the exact same format. I think I'm sure the same underlying code or framework. So here we can do cancer, probably overly broad. You can see, okay, breast cancer, Journal of the National Cancer Institute, familial cancer. You can find a decent journal from there. Okay, that was the first main open access hurdle, is getting your paper published in an open access journal, and there is support. But what about the second one? Data repository support, finding a place to support and deposit your data. Well, UND, again, has a bunch of help available. Now, if you need an external repository, you can reach out to them and find a specific registry. Of course, there might be some default ones depending on data, GenBank for genetic stuff. There's the ICPSR, that's more for the next social sciences. There's GitHub, like I use GitHub for some of my code or other small data sets. And then, of course, you can use something like the Registry of Research Data Repositories to kind of search through and find the right repository. And so there's even a link to that, the re3data.org. Now, if you want internal repository, actually UND has one, the UND Scholarly Commons. You can find that at the website commons.und.edu. And you can deposit all sorts of things there, from articles to conference papers, and importantly for our purposes here, data sets. And you can actually even get DOI available for small data sets if you need that. And so, yeah, you can go to the digital commons, or sorry, the commons. Now for NDSU, it looks like NDSU is trying to do a similar post. They have something called Bison Scholar. However, it does look like it's a work in progress as it seems to be set up, but there doesn't seem to be any submissions yet. But with that, let's take a look at what those resources look like. So first, if you're just looking for a good external site repository, there's the R3 data. You can search for maybe multiple cancer, and okay, you can do the National Cancer Database, the NCDB. You can search and browse. I think I do like browse by subject, just more broadly. And even just by, I mean, you can do graphical, but text is kind of nice. And you can go through all the various sort of categories. So say I want to go down life scientists, maybe I need something on microbial ecology. You can type that and it'll show various things like biofilms, active AMP database. And so these are very specific. Now you could even just look for a very general purpose one like Dryad, that's here. And then it's an open source publishing platform. You can actually go right to the repository as needed and check it out. Okay, so that's an example of that. Now, again, if you're looking internally for UND, there's a Scholarly Commons, there's a good FAQ, and you can actually browse the Scholarly Commons, various different things. There's theses, dissertations, there's software, there's other things. Of course, what we're interested in here is data sets. You can click data sets. You can see that there's data sets downloaded here, and you can do that yourself. And it can be files, PDFs, maybe I'm just okay on this. And okay, it has the metadata, abstract, things like that. You can even download it. So that could be a very helpful tool if you're at UND. Now, NDSU, again, I said Bison Scholar is up, but there doesn't seem to be actually anything loaded yet. That doesn't mean you can't work with NDSU if you're at NDSU to utilize this resource, because I think they're trying to boot it up. All right, with that, that is some resources for you trying to comply with having your publications and your data publicly available. Hopefully that was helpful, and certainly you can reach out to the librarians at UND or NDSU if you have more questions. All right, thanks for joining me for this short training. I will see you next time.